Minimalism is a ruthless style, unforgiving and implacable. It is seriously hard to pull off and even harder to live with. Why, then, are we so beguiled by it? Why must every new building proposal, from trashy Rossi Tower to trashier casino to high art gallery, seem to glow like diaphanous silk against the sky, with as much texture as a Ken doll and as much embodied emotion as a stick of parboiled asparagus? Why in particular must our new galleries partake of this limp self-loathing? The NSW's Sydney Modern, by Kazuo Sejima of Sanaa Architects, Tokyo, and the University of Sydney's Shochak Wing Museum, by JPW Architects, Sydney, are two major new ultra-minimalist galleries. Each is by an architect of distinction and brief to display otherwise closeted treasures. Each augments, but is physically separate from, a revered sandstone institution. Each, instead, occupies significant public green space, and it's this that attracts the ire of the august. How should we parse this trade of art for parkland? Where does the path of wisdom lie? What deserves to be built, where? And what, a couple of centuries on, will we love? Last week's opening of the Art Gallery's new Rembrandt show brought this home for me. The old Vernon building, at once noble and welcoming, sat astride its knoll, confident in its skin and drenched in evening sun. Crowds streamed through, the stone haunted as much by their affection as the sunset, the inky shadow and sculpted detail making the glorious portico almost a Rembrandt in itself. Instinctively we know it. Such a building is a thing to love. Behind the arras, though, Sydney Modern lurked like an anorexic ghost. At last, chirruped Arts Minister Don Howitt, the government, having flogged everything in the larder, can afford Sydney Modern. Yet the most interesting thing he could say about it was it could double visitor numbers. The same rot appears on the Department of Planning website, which inexplicably sees its role as propagandizing for Sydney Modern: so many jobs, so many visitors, so many school kids. Talk about missing the point. This is absolutely not about numbers. This is quality versus quality. Only the very finest architecture should be allowed to alienate beloved parkland. But how to get it, and that's the thing about minimalism. It's high risk, very high. When it's good, it's sublime. Mies van der Rohe springs to mind. Still impossible to inhabit, of course, ask Edith Farnsworth, but sublime to look at. When minimalism is not very good, however, when even microscopically off the mark, it gets mean very quickly. Then there's not a lot to be said. So why does it persist? Why, 100 years after its inception and 50 after its death, does it characterize every development ad across metropolitan Sydney? Several explanations suggest themselves. 1. Delusion. We're so accustomed to virtuality, so hypnotized by its weightless faux life, that we forget there's even a difference. 2. Self-hate. A kind of collective guilt about the immensity of our environmental impact seduces us into pretending the opposite. 3. Relentless primate competitiveness. We love minimalism precisely because it is all but impossible to achieve, and this makes it rare.